am so amped up for today's discussion here on the Gospel Recording Podcast. It's Big Facts Friday, and today's Big Facts Friday discussion focus, the state of the church, the preacher's point of view. Now, both of these preachers have been on the Gospel Recording Podcast with me. It's different now because not only you'll be able to hear them, but you'll also be able to see them now. So let's get right into it. Let me introduce these powerful men of God. First, introducing Minister Shaquille Thomas. Welcome back to the Gospel Recording Podcast.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, man. I'm truly blessed to be here.
Amen. And also joining us is Pastor Jandre Kincannon. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being on here. I'm looking forward to the topic today.
Yes, the state of the church, the preacher's point of view. Now, the world got turned upside down in March 2020. You know, I think I could safely say all of us had special plans for 2020. I mean, 2020 started off as a good year, but also a very kind of odd year because a lot of stuff was happening at the beginning of 2020. One thing that sticks out in my mind that really just shook me to my core was the passing of Kobe Bryant. Mm-hmm. And you know, now this may be a shocker, but I'm not a basketball fan or a sports fan like that. But everybody know who Kobe Bryant is. I mean, everybody know who that was. And that I remember coming home from church that Sunday and seeing the news break. And I remember that was just a weird start to the year because that happened in January. And then we get to March and everything just got turned upside down. And really, us as preachers, one thing I believe we could all agree on, when it came to ministry and being the church, everything got changed. Mm-hmm. Everything got changed. Now we are here 2 years after, in the year 2022. And I just want to have a discussion about, what is the state of the church now? What is the state of the church now? The first point I want to point out is, moving forward, do you think we are in a new normal? And Mr. Thomas, go ahead and kill us off with this. What you think about that?
I don't think we're in a new normal yet. Mm-hmm. I think it's transition right now. And I feel like, and from what I see, everybody feels like that it's all over with. I know a lot of people, I know a lot of people are against the vaccine. I know a lot of people are pro-vaccinators and all types of stuff, but I feel like that, God is really talking to his people at this time to really trust in him and have faith in him. And I feel like he's transitioning us into a place where he wants us to prepare for something that's coming, because all these things that's happening, these wars and they're all in the Bible. You know what I'm saying? Things are transitions to something that's going to happen next. And see, the thing about it is, even though the enemy has a plan, God also has a plan. So we can't get so stuck on what the enemy is doing. And we have to see what God is doing and realize that even though they're trying to transition to the world and depopulate the world and the Great Reset and all these different types of things, I do feel like that we're not in a new normal yet. I feel like this is a transition to what's about to happen next. That's all I got to say so far.
That was powerful. I never looked at it like that. Wow, that's awesome. Pastor Kincannon, what you got to say? Come on in.
See, I do think we're in a new normal. I think we're in a new normal, and as far as people are not showing up to church, and you have to reach them in an unconventional way. The gospel still remains the same. The message still remains the same. But you got to reach them in an unusual way, where we have TikTok and Facebook and Twitter that, kids watch. My son like to watch TikTok, and instead of like having bits of the preached word on TikTok, you have the whole service on Facebook, you have the whole service on Twitter. So now people are starting to transition on the online service, and they starting to forsake the assembling themselves in the building. So I think it is a new normal, because you got to find new ways to reach these people. And like Minister Thomas said, we're you hear the rumors of wars, you hear everything that's going on. And I think that this is the first time the church has actually been affected by the events that has happened in the world. where before we would talk about it, before we would pray about it, but now it came into our front yard. It's made us shut down the church and made us go virtual and made us adjust the way we was doing stuff. So I think it has affected the world. I think it has affected the church, and I think we are in a new normal. And I think this new normal is leading towards Christ coming back because, you know, God shut down the whole church and now it's going virtual. And now maybe I'm in Buffalo, but I can reach somebody in Florida without even stepping foot because now they can listen to the service. So somebody that's not hearing the gospel now can actually hear the gospel. So I think that's the new normal where, you know, churches can reach across the nations, reach across the world and spread God's word. And, you know, people can get saved in India that may not be able to watch the service or even come to the service. But because they heard Minister Thomas, because they heard Reverend Major, they can be able to get saved under that teaching. So I think this is a new normal. And I think we have to be very careful in how we transition into this new normal.
Most definitely.
I do agree with him on that point as far as the things that God is allowing us to use for the new normal. But I don't think that we're fully, completely crossed over into it yet. That's the point that I was making, like, you know, really seeing like everything that's really going on. But as far as the tools that we have now, oh yeah, definitely. This is the new normal.
Most definitely. Because one thing I do want to point out, I spoke to a friend yesterday about this. You know, I remember, I'm just gonna throw it out there, in 2016 during the presidential election, I was saying to myself, like, I was surprised it happened, but I believe it needed to happen. All because I think it was time for a wake-up call.
Yep.
It was time for a wake-up call. And it, because think about it. Let's think about it. You know, there has been a lot of things going on over the world over the years. And it never been a time where the same thing was going on at the same time everywhere. So, you know, one place may be going through one thing, but the other place really ain't really going through this, you know, same as that thing.
Right.
You know, and I'm gonna even be more plain with this. You know, America has dodged quite a few bullets. You know, a lot. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of bad things have happened here, but when it comes to certain things, America have dodged a lot of bullets. And I remember coming up to the pandemic, you know, I was in my prayer, and you know, God was telling me, like, you know, something's gonna come. Something's gonna come, something's gonna happen. And you know, all of a sudden this pandemic has came and it has changed everything. You know, normally, you know, the church is always my go-to place, the church building. Well, it was a certain time where the church building doors was closed. You know, and I strongly believe that, you know, we are in a new normal. At the same time, I also agree with Minister Thomas. This is a transitional time. A lot is changing, and that perfectly ties into the next talking point. You know, over the past 2 years, there have been a lot of pastors and leaders who have retired or passed away. With all that happening, do you think God is speaking to up and coming preachers and leaders? Pastor Kincannon, I'm gonna let you start off this. So what you think?
I absolutely think that God is speaking to the up and coming leaders. Because being a leader ain't an easy job. Being a leader is not even a job. It's a call. It's a lifestyle. You know, God waking you up at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, wanting you to pray. You warning the people, you talking to people, people not liking you based on, you know, you having to correct them, and you know, but you still got to be their leader. You still got to love them with the love of Christ. You still got to be accessible to them, even when they don't want to be accessible to you. So I do think that God is speaking, and I think God is, like Minister Thomas said about the transition. I think God is saying to the up and coming leaders, like, listen, be prepared when I move, because I can move quick. You got to be able to move with me. You got to be able to flow with me. You can't be able to stay in the same state, because God is not a staying God. He moves, and we got to be able to follow the move of him, the flow of him. So I do think that he is speaking. And I think that during this time, you know, we know God is the God of the mountain and the valley, but where we get to know God is in the valley. So some people may have took this time and really got to know God during the valley, during that pandemic, when they didn't know how they was going to eat. They didn't know how they was going to rely on day to day. They were scared because they may have had COVID, or COVID was going to come and affect their family. So that's when they got built up and they started really trusting God. So now they're coming up with this fire. They've been in the Word. Now they're coming out and they ready. Now they're ready just to be on fire for God and do what God wants them to do. So I do think that God is speaking to them up and coming leaders about taking over, because as we transition into this, or as we are into this new normal, that, you have to have leaders that are able to catch the fire, catch the flow. So I do think that he is speaking to the up and coming leaders.
Minister Thomas, come on in. What you got to say about that?
I do think that God is speaking to the up and coming leaders, but I don't think he's speaking to everybody. And I say that because you have a lot of people who have ran away from the church, right? And I can say this from experience, but not because I did it, but because I've seen people do it. People run away from the church. They go and start ministries with no covering. Wrong. And see, God can't speak to you in that sense, especially if something that's correct. Now you start in a ministry, like my apostle called it, a bastard, with no covering. And I don't think God is speaking, or he's in the midst of it. But I do think that God is speaking to some of these up and coming leaders on what to do, what not to do, because he's showing us from examples of people who have fallen away from the church. And I see it so much. And you got to think about like the leaders who I had that point in my head. It just slipped out of my head. I'm gonna pull it back out. What is it? Dang. You got some leaders like, dang, what was that point? I'm gonna get back to it. You go ahead. I'm gonna get back to it.
All right, no problem at all. Man, wow. Y'all got me over here just thinking over here. I was like, this is some good stuff, because really be quite real with you. I remember even way before I got licensed and ordained years ago, like I remember my home church pastor said, every pastor needs a pastor,
Come on.
No matter who you are. I guarantee you TDJ's got a pastor. We all need a pastor, because at the end of the day,
need somebody to pour into you.
Exactly. Because I ain't gonna lie, y'all, it gets hard. It gets hard being a preacher, being someone who, it's hard. And I thank God for excuse what you about to say, Pastor Kincannon?
No, go ahead. I'll wait till you get done.
And I thank God for my pastor. I thank God for not only him, but the people I have around me who will pray for me and not pray on me. That's a big difference. P-R-A-Y. I need people P-R-A-Y for me and not P-R-E-Y on me, because it's just so kind of like mind-boggling. I think that's the right word to use. Mind-boggling to look at the pastors and the leaders who have, retired or passed away. It really shows that a lot is changing, and this is really a time of transition for a lot of folks. And this is a time where you need to, one, be as close to God as you can, and two, you got to make sure you have people around you that's praying for you. You got to make sure you have a pastor that's actually, and that's another thing, you got to have a pastor to make sure they are being a pastor. I'm just gonna say that I'm gonna let Pastor Kincannon come in, because let me tell you, just because they can hoop and holler real good, or their prophecies are so deep and whatever, doesn't mean they are a pastor. You better be careful, because they may look good, but on the inside they are wolves in sheep clothing. But that's a whole other subject for a whole other time. Pastor Kincannon, what you got to say?
No, I like that. I was going to say, as y'all was talking about that, it reminds me of how, well, that's biblical mandate. That's always been through the Bible, where you have a covering. I mean, like, I'm not knocking any church, and I don't seem like it, but the way churches look for pastors now is not the biblical mandate. You bring them in to preach a good word, but kind of like what you said, Elder Major, just because you can hoop and holler, that don't mean you're a good pastor. Anybody can put on their Sunday's best, but the biblical mandate is to sit under somebody and let them be poured into. I mean, you look at Moses with Joshua, you look at Elijah with Elisha. I mean, you look at Paul with Timothy, you look at Jesus with the disciples, where they had the covering. And like you said, it's about somebody being a pastor, taking that time out and not being jealous of you and actually pouring into you, showing you the ropes, praying for you, pouring into you, like, teaching you everything you need to know, because, this is not an easy task. But if you have a pastor that can kind of unload it or undergird it and have that covering. I thank God for my pastor. He makes stuff a lot easy for me when I'm out there and I'm pastoring. He makes stuff a lot easy. So I was just agreeing that's the biblical mandate with the covering and, not leaving. And, and if you do want to start a church, you should talk to your pastor and ask him and be able to accept if he say, no, you're not ready. I know, I'm a man. I put on my pants the same way you do. But if that's your spiritual father, you got to accept when he say, no, you're not ready to go out there, and I, whether I'm crying, tears coming from my eyes. Yes, sir. I trust your leadership.
Go ahead, Pastor. It's Minister Thomas.
It's okay. My point, just like those people who leave the church and see, God has to allow them to be an example among the younger ones who are coming up, the up and coming leaders, because you know what I'm saying? These people fall away from the church. It just shows that their motive wasn't real. You know what I'm saying? And it's crazy because it's religion. And people have been stuck in so much religion. When it's time to get real, that's when you start to see that great falling away. You know what I'm saying? And it just reminds me of the Pharisees and the scribes, how they were just so religious, but they taught, but they couldn't live. They couldn't preach. They couldn't live what they preached. You know what I'm saying? And that's what's happening now is God is separating the wheat from the tare. He's separating the sheep from the goats. He's separating the fake from the real. Like, and he's showing us like, this is what's going to happen to you if you don't follow the way I tell you to follow. Like there's about to be a great destruction on this planet, on this earth. And that's why I believe that God is speaking to those ones that really have a covering, not those ones who just running out there trying to start a ministry real quick and trying to get followers, trying to get a little money. Oh, here go my cash app. I ain't talking about them. Hey, let me pray for you real quick. Not them people, because some of them people are bastard ministries too. You know what I'm saying? But I'm agreeing.
Wow. I'm gonna leave that alone. I was about to go somewhere. I'm gonna leave it alone. Anyway, here we go. Now that this point is something that definitely needs to be talked about, and I want you all to give your words of wisdom. There are a lot of folks who are comfortable and find it more convenient to worship at home instead of returning to the church building. What words of wisdom would you give them, Minister Thomas? You about to drop some bit fast. I could tell just by the look on your face. Oh, goodness.
I feel like it could be convenient.
Mm-hmm.
It just all depends who you are in the spirit. But corporate worship is what we need to go back to. The fellowship, going back to the altar, laying on the altar. And I do believe that returning to the church, a real church building, somebody that the church that really has a move of God. And it's not, and you know what? Let me just say this. We are the church. Let me just throw that yoke real quick. A lot of people think that the church is just a building. No, we're the church. Let's just say that. But when you come together, all these churches come together in one building. It's a corporate worship. And I do believe that a lot of us need to return back to corporate worship. Why? Because iron sharpens iron. You can't get your iron sharpened at home by yourself doing your own little worship on Zoom all the time, or trying to watch sermons on TV, or trying to, because my church, we stream on Facebook. You can't always get what you need by just streaming all the time. And you come to church. Sometimes you need to be in the presence of God. Not saying that God can't move through this, because he can. He's God. He can do whatever he wants. But sometimes we need to go back to that church building and go and lay before Christ on that altar and get in the midst of that corporate worship.
Big facts. Pastor Kincannon, what's your thoughts on this?
No, I agree. It's time. You gotta go back to the church building. Like Minister Thomas said, God can move and God can provide in, in a way of giving you your needs because the church was closed. But now since churches are open, it's time to go back, because a lot of things you can't get based online. You can't get it online. That hug that brother, that sister may give you, or that good to see you, or that, that preached word, or just the worship, just God, just, being in the midst of the fellowship. You can't get that online. And it's hard to, try to replace that, because it's something about getting up, going to the house of God. It's something about being in the midst of the fellowship and worshiping with my brother, with my sister, seeing that deacon, hearing his testimony, seeing that sister, hearing her testimony. It's just something about that. So I would encourage anybody that hasn't returned to church, should go back to church, because, online is good, but it's better to be in person.
It is.
And we can't forsake the gathering.
Mm-hmm.
It's I could tell a big difference. Like my church, we just opened back up last month, and I could tell the difference. And it's just great to be amongst the believers, and to be able to get that word inside the church building. And I'm glad Minister Thomas pointed that out. We go to the church building it's like going to the gas station. You go to the gas station to fill up your car so you can continue to move forward, to continue to drive.
Come on.
Go to the church. Oh, I thought somebody said something. But when you go to the church, you go there to get filled up. You go there to get a word. You go there to get a refreshing of the Holy Spirit. So when you go out into this world, you can move on, and you will be able to tell somebody else about who Jesus is and that Jesus saves. It's like a gas filling station. It teaches you, really, I'm going to say this, and then we're going to move forward. Really, when it comes to church, it's equipping you on how to serve outside the four walls, not just within the four walls, but most importantly, outside of the four walls. The ministries I'm a part of within the four walls of my church are helping me to be better outside the four walls. So you best believe, as soon as those church doors open at my church, when we opened back last one, you best believe I was right there, because I just need to be in the midst.
Come on,
of believers. So get what you need. You can't get it. It's different when the pandemic first started and we had no choice but to be at home for a while. But now we can be in the church building. You go to the club. You do all any and everything. But when it comes to church, you don't want to go. But then you talk about how you feel distant from God.
Mm.
Think on that. Just think on that. That's how I'm gonna leave it. Matter of fact, might drop more. Go ahead, Mr.
Now to the people out there watching that like to be home and watch stuff like this all the time. Now, suppose this was the crash and wasn't able to come back up for months and months. What you gonna do? Sila.
Period.
Come on back. Get what
you speaking facts there. Because even I can remember times in church, the power went out, but we still had church, but we was in church in the midst. And if it shut off, like how it is here, you are possibly missing your breakthrough. You are missing what you need. I'll be looking forward to the word every Sunday, because I know I need a word. And even if that word ain't for me that Sunday, I still take my notes and I still put in my favorite list on YouTube or whatever. So I can go back and say, hey, I remember my pastor talked about this, what I'm going through now in a particular sermon. Let me go back and look at it.
Yep, because it's for you now.
Exactly. So I want to start off this next point. Do you believe that the pandemic has helped the church to think more outside the box when it comes to ministry? Now, for someone, I've been doing online. I brought my ministry to the internet back in 2010. And it's amazing how you can reach people through the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And in this pandemic, something I have noticed more than I ever have since being on the internet is that people are truly hungry for the word. This pandemic really has pushed a lot of people to wanting to know more about Christ. And I have seen a lot of churches, even traditional churches, doing things in order to reach the masses. So when it comes to evangelism, when it comes to doing ministry, period, do y'all believe that the pandemic has helped the church to think more outside the box? Who want to take this one first?
I go ahead. I do think it has. I think with God letting the churches be shut down, it forced them to think more outside the box. They had no choice, because when the churches shut down, they had to go and use other resources to get the word out, for small churches to keep their church doors open. So they went to the Facebook, they went to the Instagram, the Twitter, Cash App for giving. So it forced them to think more outside the box. People that never went on Facebook before, churches that never went on Facebook before, they was going live on Facebook with their services and investing the money in their technologies and investing the money in their streaming services and all of that, just to get the word out, because they couldn't be open. So the pandemic forced them to look at more ways to get souls to Christ. I think they say it's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to bring a soul to Christ, online teaching, in person and other stuff. It forced them. So it forced their hand to not just stick in that one mode, but they go in other modes to get people to Christ.
My Lord. Minister Thomas?
I would have to say yes and no. And I say that because yes, because I agree strongly with what he's saying. God has opened a lot of doors for a lot of people that don't come to church at all, to be able to get the word wherever they're at, whether it's TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all different types of sources that I probably don't even know about. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's millions of ways that you can reach a lost soul, like he just said. But I would have to say no, too, because a lot of people, it hurt the church, too, because a lot of people got so comfortable being at home. And a lot of people think that they can get everything they need just through a phone, like we were just stating in the last point. And sometimes you have to be in the presence to get what you need. You know what I'm saying? Like one lady, and you know what? Even if you're online, yes, it can definitely help you. Because one lady at our church, she got healed from one of our services that was online. And you know what? That could have been just for her. You know what I'm saying? So I do believe it has helped, but I also think that it has hurt the church too, because a lot of people are home. A lot of people are comfortable. Now they don't want to leave their homes because they don't want to go. And the pandemic has shook them, scared them, and put them in a spirit of fear. And now they don't want to leave their homes. And guess what? You might be making that you function in real spiritual truth at home, but now you're home and trapped in the spirit of fear. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, and you gotta be careful with that too, because as believers, it's not good to be comfortable. Mm-hmm. It's not good to be comfortable, because comfortability, it's going to prevent your growth, and it's going to have you missing out on things that you need. So I encourage each and every person out there, like I said, if you're still at home and your church is open, go to church. Yeah, get your word. Go in there and be amongst believers. I guarantee you, it's a different feeling from being at home. And I do my ministry here from my office here at home, but there's nothing like being in the house of God. Nothing like it at all. So this last point, before we close out today, what has the past 2 years as a preacher and believer of Jesus Christ taught you? Pastor Kincannon.
Well, let me say this. The last 2 years with this pandemic, what it taught me is that seminary school can't prepare you to be a pastor.
Come on.
Churches put a lot of emphasis on seminary school, and that's good. I mean, it does its part, but it didn't teach me how to be a pastor. A lot of the things that I went through during this pandemic, it goes back to the covering. You had to call your pastor like, man, what's going on? And it forced you to be down on your knees even more. It forced me to pray and seek God even more, because now I had to learn how to adapt on the fly. We didn't have too much notice before we closed church. It was like, I think it was like a Wednesday when the whole pandemic hit. And then it was like, well, I think by that Friday, it was like no more than 10 people. So by that Sunday, you're trying to gather yourself and find out, okay, well, how can we do this? How can we do that? So it just taught me to now I need to learn how to I think I said it earlier, move when God moves, move on a fly. And it taught me how to seek him that much more as a pastor. And find different motives and ways to reach people, whether you're going out to evangelize, whether, talking to somebody that I meet, just taught me how to adapt on the fly. And it taught me that, you really do got to seek God in the season, because there was a lot of uncertainty, especially my church is a small church, a lot of uncertainty, but God, was faithful and just. So that's what it really taught me. Just, there's nothing that can replace the call of God in your life. And there's nothing that can replace the voice of God in your life. That's what it really taught me.
Powerful. Minister Thomas.
It has taught me that I need to be a believer and a man who seeks after God for myself. Because like I said before, now suppose this happens. Suppose we go back into another pandemic worse than before, right? They shut us down. People freak out, martial law, power outage. Suppose that you don't know God, but you've been so comfortable at your church is coming and getting what you need, clap your hands, moving it on. Every Sunday to Sunday, but you're not really deeply embedding yourself into the word every day, seeking for yourself. When those times happen, when times of persecution, when it's time to get real, your pastor, your leader, they're going to be straight because they were teaching you. But you sat there Sunday after Sunday and didn't really get what you need, didn't really seek God for yourself. So it really has taught me to seek God for myself, seek the word for myself. Guess what? If I never open my Bible and I come to church, I'll believe everything he has to tell me, even if he was a liar. And I would never know that he was a liar until I opened the Bible up myself and realized, like, hold on, he's not teaching sound doctrine. So it taught me to open my Bible up for myself, read the word, seek for myself. And they taught us how to read the Bible. They taught us how to, cross-reference, see what God is saying, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. You can't just read the scripture and say, I got it. You have to really go in depth of what God's saying, who he's speaking to, what was he saying at that time, what was happening at that time. So it really has taught me, seek God for yourself and see what God is saying to your church. Not the corporate church, not the brick and mortar, but your church. So I'm truly blessed that I have learned to seek God for myself. And, and I love my apostle so much because he always tells us, get your own tools. I can't give you my tools. I can only teach you. Because if I keep giving stuff to you, you'll keep your hand out like this. So now I go to the bookstore. Now I go to places myself and go get what I need. Go get my concordances. Go get my dictionaries. Go get my other ministerial books. Because I'm in ministry school at my church. We have a college, and they teach on the college level, and so we take class and stuff like that. But it has really been powerful, and I encourage anybody who's watching this, seek God for yourself. Get your own Bible. Stop trying to use the Bible off your phone all the time, because guess what? That may not work one day. Get you a book. Get back in the word yourself.
And to all the listeners and viewers, that's confirmation, because I tell y'all that all the time. Get to know the Lord for yourself and always have your own physical Bible. I say that all the time. So I know some of y'all probably saying, well, that must be confirmation, because Reverend Major said that almost on every episode. I definitely encourage you all to do that. I'm just going to keep my answer straight to the point. When the pandemic started, I remember I was at home. Matter of fact, I was in here and I got the text from my pastors, and the church saying, we were going to shut down. I remember the Lord, I still remember to this day, clear as day, the Lord told me, now the real work begins. And I tell you, my personal journey, as not just as a preacher, but as a believer, has been totally different since then. A lot has changed, and I view things totally different now. So I'm telling y'all, I encourage you all. Yes, technically we are still in a pandemic, but it's time to get back to the church building so you can learn more about how to be the church.
Mhm.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good. Wow.
And that's the thing, you know, a lot of folks are so focused in just going to church, but not everybody is focused on being the church. And we need to get back to the church so we could learn and be equipped more on how to be the church, because this whole world needs the word. It needs the word most definitely. Well, I want to thank Minister Thomas and I want to thank Pastor Kincannon for joining me here today on the God's Recording Podcast. It has been great having both of you